Hey guys, welcome to Solo ReacTalk. Today is Warcraft Monday, and I'm going to be reacting to the story of Vereesa Windrunner Part 2, created by Nobbel87. If you want to check out my previous reactions to Part 1, as well as my Warcraft Monday reaction videos, remember the playlist card will be at the top. Just click on it and you'll be able to access them. If you want to check out the original video, as well as Nobbel87's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. Yes, last week with Part 1, we got to know about, well, mainly the Windrunner family as a whole, with Alaria, with Sylvanas, and of course with Vereesa. And, we got to find out that she had a younger brother. I did not know about that. We also got to know a little bit about the mother and, all the painful situations that occurred, especially during the times of Arthas invading and the Horde, the first time when they invaded Azeroth, and how she grew from those experiences and how she decided that she wanted to contribute to the safety of her people. She wanted to become a warrior like her sister Alaria, who went into the Dark Portal. She wanted to become a warrior just like Sylvanas, who is now becoming the Ranger General, protecting Quel'Thalas. And, she wanted to be part of that as well. And, she went through some terrible situations in terms of her family. Her family became even further separated from each other. Sylvanas was presumed dead. Well, she is dead. She was killed by Arthas, and her sister Alaria has been lost, ever since she left through the Dark Portal. No one's heard of her or seen of her for a very long time. And of course we know that she is fighting in the twisting Netherworld, with the forces of the light. So they don't really know where she is. She's MIA, and Sylvanas is KIA, but she's also found love in a person called Ronan, who was the leader of the Kerentor. Ronan has also been having his own life journeys, going with a bronze dragon back in time, fixing up situations. And, Ronan and Vereesa, they have two children. What are their names again? Geramar and Galadin. Both are twins, red hair. They have the eyes of their mother. They're very beautiful children, very blessed children. And it's also very rare for elves to have, twins. I think that's what Nobbel87 said. Yeah, I think that's what he said. And Nobbel87 last week said that, she's going to be going through something very painful in Part 2. So I'm just wondering what that is right now. I'm kind of worried. Hopefully the children don't die. Hopefully Ronan doesn't die. But yeah, I'm ready. Let's start. 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello everyone! Last week we did the first part of Vereesa's story, talking about her youth, meeting up with Ronin, partying with dragons, working on her lovely little family. Within Dalaran, the Blood Elves rejoined the Kerentor, and in response, Vereesa formed the Silver Covenant to keep an eye on the so-called Sun Reavers, with War Chief Garrosh Hellscream placed in charge of the Hordes.
Guys, I don't like this cinematic. I don't like how they, made Garrosh like this. He's not threatening. He just looks like a cute teddy bear or something. Yeah. I don't know. I can't take him seriously like this.
Her distrust of the Blood Elves would be proven right. Since Garrosh, he had no plans of continuing Warchief Thrall's attempts at peace and working together. He saw the world as one to be rightfully claimed by the Horde and any who had the strength to stand with them. Their first target was gonna be Theramore, home to Jaina Proudmoore.
Guys, is Theramore a city-state, or is it part of Kaltaris? Where Jaina Proudmoore comes from. Is it part of Kaltaris, or is it a city-state? I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, but it's interesting that, Jaina had leadership position over this entire city. I don't think I know about the backstory behind that, like how she became the leader of this city. But yeah, I'm just wondering under what jurisdiction does it belong to, or is it, just an independent city of its own? Yeah.
Slowly but surely, the Horde moved out of Orgrimmar, ready for their war. An approach that did not go unnoticed, which gave Jaina the time to gather the support of some of the finest that the Alliance had to offer. Even Ronin, Vereesa and the Kirantor decided to help out. Not an easy decision to be made, as the Kirantor, especially with the addition of the Blood Elves, they wanted to keep a neutral stance. Yet at the same time, not assisting Jaina against such tremendous opposition, it would technically be to support the Hordes. At least, that's the logic Ava's Sunreaver used, who cast the deciding votes. It was their hope of merely being present that the Horde would turn around and seize their assault. But that was not what Garrosh had in mind. Quite the opposite, in fact. He forcefully held his troops back to give Jaina enough time to gather their forces. Then they pretended like Theramore was going to be claimed by might of arms and might of numbers. During their assault upon the Isle, Talon Sunweaver, a Sunreaver Horde loyalist, they showed their true colors by weakening the gates. You might remember saving him during the Theramore destroyed in-game scenario. Still, Theramore, they held their ground, repelled the attack, or so they thought. Up in the sky, doom approached. The Horde had stolen a powerful magical artifact, which was called the Focusing Iris, and transformed it into a huge mana bomb. There was nothing any of them could do to stop it from unleashing its devastation, and all of them were going to be wiped out.
Yeah, I think this was like one of the first times that, a faction on Azeroth have used a weapon of mass destruction, or have transformed a artifact, or a relic into a weapon of mass destruction. Because I don't think this device was meant to be used this way, Yeah.
Even those far away from Theramore, like Vereesa, on the hunt for Sunweaver. Her husband Ronan knew that he only had one option. Draw in the mana bomb upon himself, upon the town steeped in magic, so he could contain the blast as much as they could. At first, Jaina refused to leave his side. This was her city. She should be the one to give up her life for it, not...
But did it really work when he absorbed all of that energy into himself? Did it really work? Because, Theramore is still completely devastated. Or would it have been far worse? Yeah, I'm just wondering, maybe.
Ronin. He had a family that was going to need him, but the leader of the Kirantor wouldn't be persuaded. He knew that Jaina was the future of Dalaran, so while keeping their escape portal open, while drawing in a bomb onto himself, he also pushed her through. She shouted in protest. She tried to tug herself free and craned her neck to look back, just in time to see hell. The world went absolutely white. The tower shattered. Ronin's body, standing tall, arms outstretched as he glared defiantly at his fate, turned suddenly purple. He was frozen in time for a fraction of a heartbeat. Then he exploded in a cloud of lavender ash. As the portal whirled close and Jaina was dragged further and further away, she saw a violet ocean of arcane energy wash over Theramore.
Okay, so I guess it's confirmed that Ronan is dead and he's not coming back. I guess this is the painful, situation that Vereesa is going to go through in this part 2. Hopefully she doesn't lose any more people in her life, but yeah, this is terrible.
Cries of utter, absolute, depthless terror assaulted her ears, and then she knew no more. Ronin's sacrifice saved his beloved's life, leaving her behind with their 2 children, now fatherless, and a massive chasm where her heart used to be. Jaina survived as well, returned to her city, and then claimed the Focusing Iris as her own. On a quest for bloody revenge, she visited Dalaran again to ask for their aid. Not in defense this time, but for a full-on assault against those that had wiped Theramore from the map. Vereesa was there, asking Jaina what she intended to say to the Kirantor. Her face an implacable mask, but eyes that burned with righteous fury. Jaina told her, blurted out that Ronan cared about two things when he died: making sure his love would survive and that Jaina would get to safety. She filled in the gaps of what Vereesa didn't see. How Ronan used his magic to draw the bomb onto him, to save as many as he could. Vereesa, I don't understand why he chose me. Veremor was my city. I should have died for it. But he was the one who died, and I will not forget that. Not as long as I draw breath, and I will do all that I can to be worthy of his sacrifice. I was there, Vereesa. I know what they did, and I will urge the council to make sure the Horde is never, ever in so powerful a position again.
This is a cool, comic image right here of Garrosh and Jaina. Wow.
That no one else has to suffer as we have. Vereesa's lips curved into a trembling smile. And the next thing the mage knew, the two women were hugging each other tightly, and Jaina felt warm tears against her neck. But her request to the Kirantor, it was denied. Aphis takes full responsibility for the harm done by one of his own Sun Reavers, but attacking Orgrimmar was not the answer. More voices tried to persuade Jaina to let go of this hatred, this lust for vengeance, but she wouldn't listen. Ultimately, she took it upon herself to use the focusing iris, create a massive tidal wave that would wash out all of Orgrimmar. Thanks to Thrall and Caligos, she decided not to go through with the plan.
If she did go through with the plan, I don't think the Horde would exist right now, you know? I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just putting it out there that if she did go on with the plan, maybe the entire Horde would not exist. I'm sure maybe like the trolls, those who are not on in Orgrimmar, like on Zandalar or in the eastern kingdoms, on the other continent, maybe they would survive. But yeah, it would be total for the Horde, I think.
Instead, she focused her hatred upon the one that was responsible, Garrosh Hellscream himself. The warchief of the Horde was given a sound defeat at the hands of Jaina and the Alliance. Now the reason why Ronan was so hell-bent on saving her life, that was because of a prophecy from his old friend Kresis. A prophecy that foretold that she would be the new leader of the Kirantor. Sapphire to diamond she gleams now, the Kirantor leader who comes. Queen of a kingdom now fallen, marching to war's martial drums. She did accept the position, but also told them that she didn't believe to be ever truly neutral towards the Horde again. A problem for the future, as for today, they were saying farewell to Ronan. Vereesa's children were there, one on each side of their mother. Identical twin boys with their father's flame-red hair and their mother's eyes and slender builds. Jaina had learned that they recently celebrated their birthday. She was glad that at least Ronan had lived long enough to share that with them. Jiramar, the elder by a few moments, seemed a bit more stoic than his brother, Jaladin, whose lower lip quivered, though both pairs of half-elven eyes glittered with unshed tears. Their mother wore not her familiar armor, but a gown. Some were surprised to see that the garb was not black, nor even very conservative. Vereesa Windrunner was a proud and beautiful woman, and her marriage to the hot-tempered but good-natured archmage had been full of passion and devotion. It was his vibrant life she now chose to celebrate, not the ending of it. And so
Yeah, well, we all mourn in our own ways, and I don't think that should be like an issue, even in our own real world, people are always expected to come to a funeral, dressed in black clothing, looking conservative and concealing themselves. I really don't have an issue with stuff like that, where people would come to the funeral looking differently, wearing whatever makes them feel comfortable. But yeah, is this social expectation that when you go to a funeral, you have to look a certain way, you have to look a particular way. And yeah, I like what Vereesa is doing, celebrating his life instead of just mourning his passing. Yeah, it's good.
So she was clad in a flowing red dress, more appropriate to a ballroom than a funeral. Her eyes were dry. Vereesa had already done her mourning. Jaina's heart both ached for her and swelled with admiration. Ronin's sons, though lacking a father, had a mother who would raise them well.
Be careful who you trust.
And so, the Kirin moved into new leadership. Tensions high between the Alliance and the Horde, the Silver Covenants and the Sun Reavers. But our war chief Garrosh, he thought that he was thinking too small so far. Next time, he was gonna go bigger, more.
Bigger, Mist of Pandaria. Let's go.
More death and destruction. And wouldn't you know it, a brand new land revealed itself. A land full of troops, resources and hidden powers that they could use to claim the world in the name of the Horde. One of those powerful artifacts, it was called the Divine Bell. In the days of Lei Shen.
Oh yeah, the Divine Bell was destroyed, I think, by Garrosh. Like, you know, Anduin was trying to explain to Garrosh what was so important about this bell and, you know, its importance to the people of Pandaria. But, you know, Garrosh was having none of it and he just destroyed the bell. And he also, like, you know, threw Anduin aside before destroying it, I think. Yeah, I think that's how it went. If I'm wrong, guys, please correct me. But, yeah, there was a funny situation there with Garrosh not really listening and he just, you know, pushed Anduin aside.
Thunder King, the sounds emanating from it, it would fuel his warriors' hatred and anger, granting them strength on the field of battle. Quite the upgrade for the war chief soldiers. So, it was something that the Alliance, and even some amongst the Horde now, were not too happy to be in the hands of Garrosh. While Anduin's request to have the full support of Dalaran against the Horde was first denied, Jaina, still trying to set an example for the world, showed them that peace between the factions was indeed possible. That quickly changed when Garrosh forced the Sun Reavers to abuse their position within the Kirin and steal the Divine Bell that had been found and was hidden away.
You have it all wrong, Jaina. I did nothing.
You looked the other way. You and your insubordinate kind are no longer welcome here.
This is our city too, Proudmoore.
To once again
Lothamar is not going to be pleased with what's going on here.
be betrayed by Aphis and the Sun Reavers. It was a step too far. The leader of the Kirin decided that it was time for them to get out. And of course, Vereesa, she was all on board with this plan. She hadn't trusted the Sun Reavers from the very beginning, and time had not changed her mind. This purge of Dalaran was bloody and hostile. The Silver Covenant picking up arms, imprisoning those that surrendered, and slaying those that did not. But that didn't solve the Divine Bell problem. Luckily, Prince Anduin Rin and Heroes of the World, they found a way to stop the War Chief's plans. Soon after, Lei Shen himself made a return at the Isle of Thunder, a threat that could not be ignored. Lorthmar Faran and Jaina Proudmoore, they led their forces to the Isle. Step by step, they fought against the Thunder King's forces, claiming more and more of the Isle of Thunder, while also trying to take each other out, as there was no love left between them. Ultimately, they came face to face. With a bit of Pandaren wisdom, it pushed them to focus on the real threats.
Hand over the Archmage, and I may yet allow you to walk out of here, Lorthamar.
Proudmoore, you will release my people from the Violet Hold, or I will cut you down myself.
Your
I'd like to see you try, Lothamar.
people are legitimate prisoners of war. They orchestrated an attack on Darnassus from my city.
The Sun Reavers knew nothing of Garrosh's raid on Darnassus.
You lie.
Enough! There will be no more bloodshed today. I see now why your alliance and your horde cannot stop fighting. Every reprisal is itself an act of aggression, and every act of aggression triggers immediate reprisal.
They
I
have
must protect
undermined
my sovereign
every
people.
attempt at peace.
Silence! You must break the cycle. It ends today. Here, the cycle ends when you, Regent Lord, and you, Lady Proudmoore, turn from one another and walk away.
Yes, this is a momentary peace, though. You know, they're gonna go back at each other's throats yet again in Battle for Azeroth, so, yeah.
Rangers, lower your weapons.
My lord! Very well. We will stand down.
They killed my husband.
This
I know, Vereesa, I know.
won't bring him back.
Step away and focus on the real threat. War Chief Garrosh Hellscream, taking on during the Siege of Orgrimmar, in which we kicked him out of the Mantle of War Chief, but didn't take his life. Instead, they decided to place him on trial. The orc responsible for taking her husband away. Even if there was the slightest chance of them letting him walk away with his life, Vereesa couldn't let them. At the trial, she came face to face with her sister again, Sylvanas, the first time they'd seen each other in years. A perfect partner for what Vereesa had in mind. She made contact with the Banshee Queen by sending over a package containing a necklace given to her by Illyria. It also came with a note, written in an elegant handwriting, which simply said, "Once we were on the same side, perhaps we can be again." Two of the Windrunner sisters reunited with a shared goal in mind, ending Garrosh's life. At first, Sylvanas is hesitant to sign up with this plan of poisoning the former war chief, but Vereesa told her, "They took our baby brother from us, Sylvanas, and you know, Illyria would have fought anyone for the honor of dispatching Garrosh herself. She would want us to do this." All true, but still not the real reason. Sylvanas could sense it, instead of the fire and fury she expected. All Sylvanas saw was water, tears filling Vereesa's eyes and spilling down her face. She did not even bother to wipe them away as she spoke. "He took my Ronin. That was all. That was everything." Sylvana stepped forward and embraced her sister, and Vereesa clung to her like the drowning woman she was.
This sounds so different from the Sylvanas, that we see, in the cinematics. I don't think I've seen her becoming so vulnerable. Well, especially in terms of people who she's close to. I don't think I've seen that. But hearing Nobbel87 talk about this, it's quite interesting, really. The only time where I actually saw them, all three of the sisters, talking amongst each other was during Shadowlands. When she was about to be sentenced down into the maw to go look for the souls that she cast into the maw, while she was busy killing people. That was the only time where I actually saw her with Ilaria and Vereesa, them talking to each other. And she was very different compared to the Sylvanas that we see when she's fighting or when she's talking to other people. And yet again here it shows again, the kind of love and how much she cherishes her sisters, even in her state as an undead person, and with her own ambitions. She still has a heart for her sisters, especially Vereesa at this very moment.
"I will not betray you, sister. We have suffered enough losses." Sylvanas realized as she spoke them that the words were true. It was unexpected, and even more so that, while scheming, planning their murder, Sylvanas started to feel. The Queen of the Forsaken desperately wanted to keep Vereesa around, and after all was said and done, it wasn't exactly like she could go back to regular life. The Alliance would have no place for her anymore, so what about joining her within the Undercity? Rule by her side, reshape the Horde to their own image. Of course, the Undercity wouldn't respond too well to a living being, but it wouldn't be as bad as when Sylvanas was turned.
I mean, imagine the kids living in that place. I don't think so. I don't think it would be a proper environment for them, to be living in such a place. And if she joins Sylvanas, then she'll have to also be an undead person. No, you're still a mother. You still need to, protect your children. And I don't think you would really want something like this. Or maybe you do. I don't know.
Vereesa would merely go to sleep and awaken beautifully transformed, reborn with insight and ambition that one who breathed could never fathom. She was so far lost in her grief and a lust for vengeance that Vereesa actually went along with this, only taking a moment to ponder the fate of her two boys. But naturally, the Undercity is no place for two children to grow up in. Sylvanas...
Exactly, Nobbel87, exactly.
Might have taken them into undeath as well, if it meant for her sister to be at her side, but that wasn't going to be necessary. They were better off where they were, and Vereesa thinks that she hasn't been the best of mothers to them anyways. So their plans continued, the poison was provided. Sylvanas could already see the both of them hanging out in the Undercity. Vereesa found the perfect opportunity to strike, sending a literal last meal to Garrosh. But then her thoughts turned to her beautiful boys. She had not thought of them, not really, in a long time. First, she had to deal with the Sun Reavers and Lorfmar, then the Siege of Orgrimmar, then the trial. She had barely spent any time with them within the recent years. Not even right after. They were beautiful, with Ronin's red hair and her eyes. Giramar, eldest only by a few moments, and Galadin. Vereesa suddenly realized how much she had missed their laughter. How wild they both used to be, but kind-hearted. Her boys, and their father would be so proud of how bravely. She tried to picture them in the Undercity, and couldn't. Where would they run and play and laugh? How could they learn anything about life in the City of the Dead? And then she runs into Anduin, believing the light to be at work here. Quickly, the words tumbled out of her mouth before fear and hatred closed her lips. I surrender my choice to you. Garrosh's food is poisoned. Do with the knowledge what you will.
I know what he will do. He will save Garrosh's life. He's not about to allow an assassination attempt to occur. I mean, this is Anduin. He wouldn't do it.
Without waiting for an answer, she raced down the corridor, leaving the choice of letting Garrosh live or die within the hands of a 15-year-old. A little while later, as she was back in Dalaran with her warm, lovely, living children, a messenger arrived.
So wait, Anduin was 15 years old? During the time of the Mist of Pandaria, he was 15 years old? He looked older than that. He looked like he was in his 20s or something.
He lives. I will not make two children, both fatherless and motherless. What you do now is your choice. But that still left Sylvanas utterly crushed and devastated. The pain, it was unbearable. It was the same phantom agony that she had experienced over the last several days.
But Sylvanas, you haven't lost her. She's still going to be around. Yes, she's not going to join you becoming an undead person, but she's still around. You can still go visit her, reminisce on old times and, just visit your nephews as well. She's not dead. And she's always going to be here. She's also immortal, right? Yeah, she's also immortal. So there's nothing really to be worried about or to be sad about. Yeah, you can be a little bit disappointed, but it's nothing too terrible. Yeah.
She had felt so happy with Vereesa, except now, even the joy that had accompanied the pain was gone, and there was nothing left but torment. Little moon. Sylvanas fell to her knees, buried her face in her hands and wept like a broken child who had lost everything. Little moon! Gradually, the sobbing ceased, and the familiar peace of coldness drove out the heated hurting. Sylvanas rose, licking blood from her lips. She should have known. The pain she had felt at first, when she dared foolishly permit herself to hope for something different from what she had now, to feel something for another, to feel love again. It had been a warning that she was no longer made for feelings such as hope, or love, or trust, or joy. These things were for the living. These things were for the weak. Calmed now, through tears and slaughter, she remounted her horse. Sylvanas Windrunner, the Banshee Queen of the Forsaken, would never again make the mistake of believing she could love.
How rude, sister.
And yet...
So then what about Nathanos? Don't you love him? Don't you love him? Isn't there a space for him in your heart? As dead as it is, don't you still care for him? Sylvanas.
She did always keep a bit of a soft spot for her sisters, but we'll get to that in just a moment. First, Vereesa had to deal with yet another invasion from the Burning Legion. This time, the biggest one the world had ever seen. The expansion Legion played out, where heroes of the world formed their order halls, picked up mighty artifacts in the war against the Legion. Marksmanship hunters out there, they were called in by Vereesa to help her with a very special mission.
My eldest sister, Alleria, has been missing for years. A demon we captured claims she is being held on a Legion world called Niskara by some sort of inquisition. Her return would be invaluable.
Admit it, Vereesa. This mission is personal.
Yes, it is. Why are you taking out the brutally obvious? Of course it is.
Alleria's knowledge about the Legion could help us defeat them once and for all.
That is true, but it's also personal.
Our goal is to reacquire a strategic asset. Nothing more.
Even Horde hunters went through this quest, seeing how she had witnessed their deeds firsthand and had seen them fight for Azeroth time and time again. Regardless of their faction, all hunters were welcome to come along to Niskara on the hunt for Vereesa Windrunner. And while she was on the planet at some point, she is no longer present.
By the light. There! It's her bow! Thasdora! Alleria was here. Her bow's presence is the proof. Doubtless she escaped and the Inquisitor sought to use me to lure her back. Thasdora began as my family's legacy, but now this weapon has a greater purpose. This is a bow worthy of a hero like Alleria. A hero like you. Take Thasdora, champion. Use it to lead the fight to save Azeroth.
And under our leadership, Vereesa and her rangers, they joined the Hunter Order Hall, the unseen path in the war against the Legion, aided in taking on Hakar the Houndmaster, worked together with the Night Elves, the Blood Elves, and the Nightborn in the Rebellion of Suramar. Vereesa was right there at the gates of the Nighthold, still not trusting the Blood Elves, wondering why they were working together, but few things bring together an army better than a common enemy. This push into the Nighthold was unsuccessful, as Elisand unleashed their might over time and froze our forces into place. A better display of time gating there will never be again. But in time, we managed to free them, find a way inside. Although she didn't really show up during the raid itself, I do wonder if Vereesa was supposed to play a part in any of these fights, and she does have a very small cameo in the final cutscene. Regardless, Suramar was liberated, and even the Tomb of Sargeras was conquered. Meanwhile, more hints and quests were dropped, aiming at the long-awaited return of her sister Illyria and Turellian. Remember how they had stepped through the Dark Portal to take the battle to the Hordes? They've been lost ever since. Even when we did the same with the Burning Crusade, they were nowhere to be found. Turns out that they have joined the Army of the Light, spending millennia fighting against the darkness in the great dark beyond. When heroes of Azeroth left their planet behind to take the battle to Argus, home base of the Legion, Vereesa and Arator, they finally reunited. Not a whole lot of time spare for a cozy family reunion, considering that we were fighting the Legion after all, but there was enough time to catch up. Especially the part about how their now undead sister is leading the Horde.
Impossible! I refuse to believe she now leads the Horde. Not after all they did to our people during the war.
There's more.
I understand how you feel about that. However, the situation has changed, Alleria. Things have changed drastically on Azeroth. And this is her new reality as a Forsaken. She has to secure a future for her own people and her own ambitions. So if it means becoming this new leader of the Horde, then so be it. And it wasn't really her choice. It was Vol'jin who pointed at her and said that you are going to become the new leader of the Horde, after their failed attack on Gul'dan and the Burning Legion forces. He was on his deathbed and he chose Sylvanas to become the new war chief. So yeah.
I'm not sure how to explain the rest, or if this is even the time or place to...
I must know, Vereesa. What fate befell our sister?
Give me a moment. I will do my best to explain.
She has multiple fates, not just one, like multiple storylines now.
After imprisoning Sargeras and returning back home, a Windrunner reunion that fans had been waiting for was finally going to happen. All three sisters had now returned to Azeroth, but none were the same as when they said goodbye. Illyria had become infused with the void, constantly hearing its whispers. Sylvanas is a banshee, and unknown to all, allied to the jailer. Vereesa, well, Vereesa didn't get a power-up like the other two did, but she did lose her husband. Neither of them were there when she needed them.
What do you mean she didn't get a power-up? She has 2 children, okay? She has 2 children. The other sisters don't have... Oh. I'm sorry, Illyria. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, Illyria has a child. But, okay? Vereesa has twins. She has twins. So, that's a power-up right there. Okay, I'll just shut up. I'm sorry.
They both let her think that they were dead. Do you even know what they did to me? You were my heroes. We have all lost so much. Must we lose everything again? Ultimately, it becomes clear to them that their family is broken. Too much time, too many things have happened to simply return to the path, the family that they once knew.
But, you know, like in Shadowlands, when they got back together before, you know, judgment was passed on Sylvanas, you know, they tried to mend those wounds. They tried to, you know, say their goodbyes to Sylvanas as she went into the Maw. And yeah, like this family, I don't think they are going to go anywhere anytime soon. They're all immortal, and yeah, they'll just have to just wait, you know, and we will just have to just wait and see what happens to them in the future. But this family is not going anywhere. It's still very, very strong.
There are 2 cool parts about the comic that really stand out, which, first of all, Vereesa, she gets a chance to apologize to Sylvanas for being such a coward. She had asked her to stay in the Undercity, and Vereesa had said yes, to then change her mind and only send a letter to refuse. That must have hurt you. Whatever has passed between us, and whatever will, I am sorry. I hope one day you can forgive me. With those words, they left their undead sister behind, and only to us is it shown that Sylvanas actually had an ambush waiting. She plays it off as, in the end, they will all serve death, they will all serve me. But if anything or anyone can make Sylvanas feel something again, it would be her sisters. I personally think that it was Vereesa stepping up to her cowardice that made her change her mind about the coming attack. The youngest Windrunner sister was allowed to go home and hug her children another day, but I didn't.
But does Sylvanas think that Illyria was just going to stand by and watch as they're being attacked by these assassins sent by Sylvanas? No. I mean, she's controlling the void. I don't think that's a power, that's a force of nature that I don't even think, you know, undead people can truly defeat or grasp, you know, in trying to defeat. So yeah, it was not going to work out. If anything, it was just going to make your family even more separated, more splintered, and, you know, very angry, distrustful of each other because of such an action. So yeah, luckily Sylvanas didn't do that, make that decision to assassinate her sisters, particularly Vereesa. And yeah, lucky.
Stop Sylvanas from pushing forward with her plans, of course. Allied to the jailer, she has used the position of war chief to push the Alliance and the Horde into a massive war. Many casualties on both sides, fueling her plots behind the scenes. Until ultimately the factions, they once again realize that working together is a far better option. They made ready, including the Windrunner sisters, to confront War Chief Sylvanas, but that confrontation never really happens. Instead, a one-on-one duel exposed her to the rest of the Horde, moving her to leave everything behind, go into the next stage of her plans, shatter the sky above Icecrown, and kick off the expansion Shadowlands. So far, we've seen Illyria take front and center when it comes to the Dark Lady, but Vereesa hasn't really shown up yet. Of course, the story of the Shadowlands, it still needs to play out, and has started its focus more on the Shadowlands rather than the factions. I do wonder when, if at all, Vereesa is going to play a part in the confrontation with Sylvanas. I would personally find it a
I don't think she really did. It was mainly Tyrande Whisperwind who was becoming that main contender against Savannah's Windrunner. It was just mainly Tyrande, her wanting revenge against the person who instigated the massacre, if I can say that, at Teldrassil. So yeah.
A real shame if they don't use this moment to have all the Windrunners meet up in-game. Imagine a fight in which Sylvanas uses the dead to her advantage, use the shade of Lyrav or Ronin to twist her sister's minds. At the same time, maybe a more emotional approach would be better. If there's anything out there that could persuade Sylvanas, it would be your family. Little Moon speaking with Lady Moon, but time is going to tell what the future might hold for Vereesa. When it comes to the Windrunner sisters, she is definitely a Peggy. There's a lot of potential that they could work with, rather than having her as a side character to a Ronin or a Jaina or a Sylvanas. Vereesa is a badass on her own, amazing in combat, has dealt with dragons and magic and even her own family. In the books, she is pretty cool, but in-game, she deserves so much more. I hope to see some really cool story for her and her 2 children. But for now, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Really hope you enjoyed the story of Vereesa. If you did, make sure to leave a like. You could also subscribe. And until next time, see ya!
Okay, guys, that's it with the story of Vereesa Windrunner part 2, made by Nobbel87. Yes, what Nobbel87 says is correct. We don't really hear much about Vereesa, or we don't see much of her in the game. Well, as far as I know, as far as I've been seeing the cinematics and a bit of the gameplay in terms of World of Warcraft, I haven't really seen much of her. Unlike Alaria and Sylvanas especially, she's there. she's like one of the most important people, so there's no way you cannot know about her. There's no way you cannot play the game without seeing her multiple times. But yeah, Vereesa is very rare to be seen or even to know anything about her, and we do need more of her in future iterations of World of Warcraft. Maybe she's going to be in Dragonflight, I don't know, maybe she'll be there, and hopefully in newer installments that come out after Dragonflight we get to see more of her as well, and having her own spotlight, having her own space where we would see this character grow from that terrible past in terms of losing a husband, losing a part of her family, and her coming into her own person and developing new powers, new strength, new upgrades, like how her sisters have gone through. Sylvanas becoming undead and having those abilities, and then her other sister Alaria learning the ways of the void and becoming one of the leaders of her people in terms of the void elves. So yeah, there is a lot more that needs to be invested in this character, and yeah, it's interesting to hear about what happened to what happened after Theramore was bombed by that mana bomb. How Jaina and Vereesa, they were understanding each other and they both wanted revenge for what happened. But ultimately Jaina changed her mind due to convincing from other people, telling her to let go of that pain and try to take a different path. But it seemed that Vereesa didn't really get past it, and it's understandable. I mean, she lost her husband, and yeah, she is a good mother. She should not say she's a bad mother or she hasn't been a mother to her children. She's a good mother. She's been there as much as she could, and she was also defending her children from tyranny of the horde that was being led by Garrosh. Because if he was not defeated by the alliance as well as those who are part of the horde who are against Garrosh, you know, if they did not win against Garrosh, then things were going to be extremely bad for everybody. So in her own way, she was also protecting her children, you know, making sure that they have a future on Azeroth and not being, you know, consumed by the old gods, and, you know, Garrosh being the leader or the king of ashes, because essentially this utopian dream that he was having in his mind was just nonsense everywhere. It was just destruction, burning castles and burning landscape, and it just looked horrible. So thankfully, you know, the forces, the Alliance and the Horde that were against Garrosh, they won against him, and she was contributing to that. So it was very, very important. So yeah, she's a good mother. She is an interesting character, and hopefully, you know, the Windrunner sisters can all come back together again one day. Who knows when that will be, because Sylvanas still has a lot of work in the Shadowlands. But yeah, hopefully one day they'll come back together, all three of them. Okay guys, that's it today with Nobbel87. If you want to check out the original video as well as Nobbel87's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. If you like my video, or if you like the reaction, please give me a like, comment and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos, and I'll see you guys next week Monday. Okay, bye bye.